Let's not forget the testicles.
No, I don't.
Okay, great.
But I don't love them as much as the penis.
That's totally fair.
They are B team for me. Yeah,
Yes.
just saying.
Totally fair, but...
This is Sexy Funny Raw, where we chat all about the world of sex, from dating and relationships all the way to the adult industry itself. I'm Silvia Saige, and this is my Pornspective, answering all the questions you weren't even brave enough to ask Google. Get ready, because Sexy Funny Raw starts now.
What's up, guys? I am Silvia Saige. Welcome back to another episode of Sexy Funny Raw. I am, of course, joined in studio with Dr. Eddie, my co-host. We are in a new studio. We're doing a little bit different format. Last time we got really deep into the herpes conversation, which I love, and I feel like we could do 6 more episodes. So if you need more, let me know. But this episode, we're going to answer some questions from our guest. We don't have a guest. Where's the guest?
Invisible
We're going
guest.
to answer some
From our
questions
audience.
from our audience. Yes. So questions that you guys have submitted, we are going to at least break into. We might not go completely down the rabbit hole, but I think some of these questions made some new rabbit holes for us as we were discussing them. So we might go deeper into a few of these subjects. But
I can be pretty loquacious.
yeah. Yeah. So let's start. Let's start with a few questions. So a big one that I feel like I get quite often from our male audiences is, what is the best way to increase stamina and last longer in the bedroom?
And so there's a lot there, right? And so it's going to be really different depending on what we're talking about. If it's premature ejaculation, that's different.
Right.
Right? If you just want to last longer, my question would be...
Can I interrupt for a question on the question?
Sure.
When you say, if we're not just talking about premature ejaculation, when you are talking about premature ejaculation, are you talking about coming within seconds? Is that...
Right, so within a minute,
okay,
less than
Got it.
Premature ejaculation, the second you insert, it's something that a lot of people suffer from.
Yes, they do.
And there are things that you can do in that instance.
Okay.
And there are certainly medical interventions that can occur as well.
Which are?
So there's different types of lotions and things that you can put
Lotions.
on the, to desensitize it.
Oh, interesting.
Right, so lots of the men's websites now that could give you meds and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They have some of those little sprays
And those work.
little things. And so they work some.
Okay.
Right. And so they'll desensitize you a little bit.
Okay.
But I think that speaks to a larger question about how men climax in general. And so what can we do to last a little bit longer? So for some men, masturbating a few hours before sex might be a good technique.
But not to full come, right? Don't come.
You do want to orgasm,
you do.
Right? But it depends what your recovery time is, if that makes sense. For some guys, it's a few minutes. For some guys, it's a few hours. For some guys, it's a whole day.
Okay.
Right? So there's all of these things have kind of variables.
Yeah.
And so it's not a one answer fits all, like so much of the stuff that we talk about. But you can, so masturbation is one way, desensitizing lotions are another.
Okay.
You can do some edging to kind of work or practice.
And when you say edging, you mean that's masturbating to the point of not coming.
Correct. And so getting yourself almost to the point of climax and then giving yourself that time to stop.
But wouldn't that make you just want to explode even more when you do finally get what you want?
But the intention there is to give your body to do that. You're not doing that just once or twice.
You're doing that on a constant.
And you're doing that on a constant basis. And so how we masturbate as men is certainly a question. And most people don't have that conversation. And guys, of course, don't have that conversation with each other in most cases. But we develop those skills or how we do it really early in life. But sometimes how we do it can present its own kind of conflict.
Okay.
Right? And so oftentimes, the average man only takes, 5 to 6 minutes to ejaculate.
So you're saying he's causing his own issues by masturbating?
No, well, I mean, let's not place blame like that, first off. But that's only in some instances.
Okay.
Right? And so it's going to be really different depending on the variables at play.
Okay.
So it could be... So to better explain it, let me introduce you to a concept called like the orgasm threshold.
Okay.
Right? So the orgasm threshold, think of it as a scale of 1 to 100.
Okay.
Okay. So your scale
Orgasm's 100.
No.
Oh.
And so along this scale, you'll orgasm.
Okay.
Right? So let's say, visualize the scale 1 to 100.
Got it.
You know, anywhere from 20 to 30 for a guy, you might be in the premature ejaculation kind of spectrum.
Okay.
60 to 80, you might be in the average guy spectrum. And then 80 above, that's when we get into things like delayed climaxing and delayed ejaculation, which some people think that might be lovely, but is in fact horrible and terrible in a variety of ways, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But that threshold is about what it takes for you to get to that point. Just because a man is erect doesn't mean they've gone from 0 to 60.
Right.
Right? And so in a lot of instances, especially as young men, you get erect and you're going for a deep dive quickly. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you've achieved that necessary threshold per se to reach orgasm, but thrusting will get you there and all of that stuff. But when a man is having sex with a woman, that threshold per se is just a way to think about it, right? So there is no like set number that you go and you clock yourself at. It doesn't work that way. Right. It's just a way to kind of visualize what this could look like.
Is it not more of a mental game? Because that's what I've always thought. Like, can't you just like, you know, you always hear people like think of your grandma or think of a dead puppy, like that type of thing.
That probably works to a point, but not really.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And so if you're really, really close to you're about to orgasm and that threshold, you have to train your body. Right. And so that's where edging or masturbating and stopping, not edging per se, where you're about to get to climax, but masturbating and stopping. That could be dangerous too, because blue balls are a real thing and they are quite painful sometimes. And
I always wondered that growing up, because you always hear these teenage boys be like, "Oh, she gave me blue balls, so mean," and then you're like, "Didn't I do?"
It depends on how we're using that term.
Okay.
But like actual blue balls, where you're so close to ejaculating or very close to it and you don't, can actually in fact be painful. But that seems a little bit more extreme than like.
I mean, I've definitely almost come and then haven't come, and like the sex-ins or whatever, and they walk away. I'm definitely like pissed about it, and I still want to come, but like I'm not like, oh, it hurts so bad. I'm like, I would love to come right now. That's my thought,
We have really different anatomy, and so let's be okay with having different anatomy.
Yeah, but is it different anatomy? Is there different pain thresholds?
I mean, that's for sure anyway. There's, of course, a different pain threshold for men and women.
Okay.
However, when we're talking about sensitive testicles, they can hurt and be very uncomfortable, at which point, let's say she leaves and the guy masturbates, it's still going to take a little while for that pain to stop.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it doesn't like end instantly the second you ejaculate, right? And so, and I'm not speaking from experience per se, but I think that might be the case for most guys, right? If you do have blue balls, the pain might not go away immediately and takes a little while.
Interesting.
And so that depends. If you're having like a marathon kind of day where you're kind of having engagement for hours and hours and hours and then don't ejaculate, that's when maybe blue balls are going to come into play. Not, I didn't get to come, so I have blue balls. It's not like that. It's not the same kind of math.
Okay.
I think.
Interesting.
So, I mean, I got a little bit off topic as far as how to prevent or how to increase stamina.
Yeah.
But it really takes a little bit of practice, and it takes having that conversation with a partner.
But I think people are wondering, is it a food? Is it something I can take? Is it, any of those things? Is it really. A simple?
It's not that simple. Everybody wants a pill for everything.
Course. Yeah.
But that's just not the way it works.
Okay.
Because we're trying to correct or change behavior that we've been doing all of our lives. Okay. And that doesn't happen overnight.
So it is literally training yourself, training your dick, training your mind, training.
If we're not talking about a medical condition like premature ejaculation or delayed ejaculation.
Okay. What are some tips for hot sex in hot weather? I don't know if this is one for you or one for me, Dr. Eddie. I feel like
I think we probably both have a little bit to contribute here.
We probably do.
Okay. What I would say is positions, ice, showers, pools.
Yeah.
Right? So all of those things where we're not pressed up against each other.
Thank you.
I think might be a first step. So like doggy style or standing or up against a wall where you're not really rubbing your entire bodies together because that gets hot.
Yeah.
It just does. Right. And so, you know, people are still having lots of sex in hot weather. And there's a lot of countries that don't have AC or air conditioner, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of places that don't have AC, like here in California, where it's not normal. But now it's hotter than ever.
Yeah.
Right. And we're in triple digits all summer. And so what do you do if your house doesn't have AC? Even though in the past it wasn't needed, that's kind of the direction the world is going. It's getting hotter. Summers are going to be more extreme.
Yeah. I think that would have been my best advice too, is probably positioning of sex. And it would be more of like, do doggy in a skirt, you know, like in a just, you know, spring dress, you know, and just bend me over and don't touch me. Don't touch me.
I fully support dresses. So yes, you would look adorable in a little dress.
Thank you.
But also you can try things like ice and popsicles.
Interesting.
You know,
okay.
like other things, and a fan goes a long way.
Wait, popsicles. Let's not get too carried away because I don't want people putting popsicles in places.
And I think that's definitely a different conversation because popsicles or any food shouldn't be in anything.
Inserted.
But it could be erotic, if not maybe a little painful for some people if they're using it around their nipples.
Okay.
It depends.
Nipples, that I can do.
So some people might be too sensitive or in that area. So those are all conversations and exploration.
What about food in the butthole?
That's a hard no.
Hard pass. Okay.
That's a hard no. You don't want food in anywhere.
Got it.
And so bringing food into the bedroom, which is I think a different question that we were going to get at, but bringing food into the bedroom, it can be really exciting, but you want to keep it simple.
Yeah.
You need a lot less than you think.
Okay.
And you don't want to put it directly in anything, but around.
Around.
Right? So like if you're using strawberries, then chocolate sauce, but don't like
nipples.
Bring out the Hershey's thing and pour it on your body. Perhaps get like a little nozzle that you can fill. And we're talking about very small amounts that are going to go very far.
Yeah.
And so a little bit of planning goes a long way.
Yeah.
And you don't want it in your vagina or in an anus.
Okay.
You don't necessarily want to lick whipped cream off a penis.
Really?
I would stay away from that.
It's so sad.
I would stay away from that only because it depends. If you're going towards the head of the penis, then the chances of that getting in there and causing an infection are very high.
You're ruining people's day with your daddy.
What I would say is if you want to suck whipped cream off testicles, or other areas where you're working your way towards the penis.
Testicles are not nearly as fun though, but it's
I mean, they all deserve a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's fine.
Right? Let's not forget the testicles.
No, I don't.
Okay, great.
But I don't love them as much as the penis.
That's totally fair.
They are B team for me. Just saying.
Totally fair, but we don't want food that can get in anywhere because food causes infections. And you don't want to like slap a ham sandwich anywhere near that. So keep it simple and typically sweet. A good technique might be honey or chocolate sauce or strawberries, whipped cream.
Don't do this at your own house.
Well, I mean,
in a
prepare
hotel.
for sheets. Prepare with, there's sheets you can buy. Make sure all of those things with a little bit of planning go a long way.
I'm a big fan of just taking it somewhere else and then tipping the housekeeping, you know?
Sure, but that's a luxury that everybody might not have access to. So if we're talking about not having access to hotels, you can still have great fun sex.
Yeah, get dollar sheets.
It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
One that's commonly not used is candy, like gummy bears and stuff like that. They stick to the skin-ish. And you can create a trail and work your way towards areas and fun areas that way. But first, have the conversation.
Okay.
Second, plan. And 3, keep it away from holes.
Okay, don't put it in holes.
Don't put it in holes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next question. Okay. This one's for me. Someone asked, as an adult actress, can I discount my, clothes and makeup and scene supplies?
Yeah.
Yes. I do all of that. I write off absolutely anything and everything that has to do with pornography. The only thing is if I'm wearing an outfit that can be worn in everyday wear. Yeah. Like basically what I'm wearing right now, I could not write this outfit off because this is an outfit I would wear on stage. I would wear for my podcast, but I can also wear into public. So I can't write things like that off. But my nails being done, I can write off at least one a month. My hair being done, I can be written off.
Travel, parking, hotels if you're filming in other places. Let's see. There's quite a few lists out on the internet. So a little bit of research goes a long way, and itemizing those things is also really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just hiring a team that does that for you.
But if you don't have that luxury, there are some simple ways to think about it. If it's work related and you're working from home, then water might be a thing. Electric bill might be a thing.
Yeah.
There are a couple of variables there that there are some.
Well, I write
benefits.
my rent and my car payment because
it's your place of employment.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't apply to everybody, but it's going to depend on a couple of variables, and you don't want to be audited and all that stuff.
Right. Well, the rent is because my home is also my workplace.
Right. And so that's really common now as well, and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next question. I wish I knew who these were from, but that does not matter. Okay.
What can a man do that can get an erection and not climax?
Thank you. I'm like, why can I not read that question? Okay.
It was worded weird, but I kept it.
Okay, I was like, why can't I make these words make sense? Okay.
And so ultimately the question is, if you can get an erection, but you have a very difficult time where you can't climax as a man, what do you do?
Yeah. Okay.
And so that is what's called delayed.
And you were talking
ejaculation.
about that earlier.
Talked about it a little bit. And so that creates a variety of stressful situations for men.
So I think about a man being on drugs in that situation. That's the situation I've occurred.
That is not the same thing as delayed ejaculation. There are men in the world that they can thrust for 45 minutes and still don't orgasm.
Okay.
This is a medical thing.
Okay. Will they ever reach an orgasm?
And so that is it depends on the person. So some people, yes, and some people have a very difficult time. So it can be stressful and painful and all of those different kind of pieces that go along with delayed ejaculation. If we're talking about delayed ejaculation.
Okay.
So delayed ejaculation kind of has a couple of specifics that go along with it. Like you don't ejaculate, right? If you can thrust for 45 minutes, which I don't know any woman that wants to be thrusted for 45 minutes.
I don't.
Right? Guys might think that that's what women want, but that's not what's happening.
No.
That nobody wants that.
We have things to do.
Fair enough. But also, an adult film is 2 hours long per se. And, they're going at it forever, not thinking that those guys have come and stopped 20,000 times throughout that whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? That being an aside, delayed ejaculation can be incredibly stressful for relationships because your partner might feel that they're not enough.
Of course.
All of those things come into play. I kind of think of delayed ejaculation a little bit like the opposite of premature ejaculation. But if we talk about like your orgasm threshold, where premature ejaculation is a 20 or a 30 on this 100 kind of scale that we envisioned earlier.
Yeah.
And delayed ejaculation is 80 plus. That creates an environment where you're not having satisfying sex.
Yeah. Or at least he isn't.
Right. Well, and so should be a part of the equation too,
course.
Right? And so we know that it's much more difficult because women tend to have a higher orgasm threshold, right? Their numbers are just higher. It takes more. But for guys, sometimes when a guy gets erect, that he's going in. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that he's gotten to the threshold that he might need.
Yeah.
And so thus thrusting and the actual process helps you get there. For some men, even that doesn't get them there yet. So a technique that some people suggest is waiting longer before you insert. Right?
More foreplay.
Much more foreplay. Get yourself hotter.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's not always the case because a guy can get erect relatively simple in a lot of cases. That doesn't mean that he's super aroused. It just means he's aroused enough to have an erection.
Right.
Right. And so those erections mean a lot of different things. They don't always mean this is the one. This is it. This is the greatest. Right. That's not what that means.
Yeah.
For women, you can't tell, but they go through those same processes as well.
Yeah.
Right? The female body, you can also have an erection.
Yeah.
But not be super aroused,
Yeah.
even though your number to get there is a little bit higher. So
Yeah.
you do have to be more aroused than a man in that instance.
Yeah, very true.
I would say trying to wait and doing all of the things before you get there could help. It does help some guys.
Yeah.
And then trying how you masturbate and considering how you masturbate, considering how a lot of those variables that your partner has no control over.
Yeah.
Maybe changing that up and trying something a little bit different might be helpful. There's no easy solution to it, right? Anal also works.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But I don't want to throw men into that category and say, now you want your female partner to do that, or your male partner, or whatever the case may be.
Well, speaking of anal, that was another question that you haven't even seen yet, Dr. Eddie. And that was a question of, am I risking infection with anal play? That was a question from the guest.
So it depends on what we're talking about, per se. Infection of what? Like any type of infection, and what kind of play are we talking about? So it's going to depend. If we're using food and it's in your anus, a very high likelihood of infections and stuff. So food shouldn't be in anything, right? It's kind of one of the reasons why I said we should stop masturbate, or women in some cases should not masturbate with a cucumber.
Yeah.
Right? Or and if you do, it's with a condom.
Yeah.
It's because there's bacteria on all of this stuff.
Right.
Even washing it with soap isn't going to necessarily cut it.
Yeah.
And so you don't want food in anywhere.
I think my question to this question, or at least what I'm thinking in my head with this, is because I think we have talked pretty openly on the show in the past about like how with the anus, it is more susceptible to things because it's more susceptible to cuts and tears, correct?
Definitely. So if anal play involves
Insertion of any kind.
insertion of a toy and the toy hasn't been cleaned, all of those things, then yes, because of those micro tears that you could never see, or bigger tears that could produce blood and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely, if that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
So it just depends on what kind of anal play we're talking about.
But as a whole, I guess if I'm looking another way at this question, it's not like you're more likely to catch something by having anal sex as opposed to having vaginal sex.
Correct. So putting it in the butt is not going to save you from an STI. It's
or
not,
put you at higher risk.
or
is it?
So in some cases, it can put you at higher risk because of those micro tears and stuff.
Okay.
But those micro tears also happen in the vagina, right? And so it depends.
Gotcha.
How used to, like, is your rectum used to anal play, right? And so if it's very used to it, like, is this penis larger than ever before? Is it smaller? Like, there's going to be a bunch of variables. There's no hard and fast.
So are you telling me, just by saying that, are you telling me that my ass gets used to getting fucked?
Kind of, but no.
Oh, okay.
No, it just, so if a larger
I'm
penis
like, is it building up a memory back there or what's going on? Okay.
So if you're used to very large penises,
I am.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
And so if you're used to very large penises and then a normal human is going in there, then the chances might be lower.
This makes sense.
Right? Those micro tears and all of those things, they will heal up and, not so much expand or anything like that.
Yeah.
But then, if we're talking about like a porn penis, which is 10 inches versus a human penis, which the average is.
Also, porns are still human. Just to throw
They
that
are.
out there.
Absolutely.
Porn penises still human penises.
Excellent point. My apologies. But like a 7 or 8 inch penis.
Yes,
Or,
yeah.
or like an average penis, which is 5 or
5,
6.
yeah.
Right? And so all of these things are still wonderful.
Yeah.
And you can still have wonderful sex lives and
Yeah.
all of those things. But the distinction would be that if you're used to very large and then it's very small, the chances would be a little bit lower because
That
you're not
makes
going to have
sense.
as many tears and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. That makes total sense. Okay. Moving on. Next
We're
question.
only talking about human sex, folks. Sorry.
Human sex,
Human
please.
sex, folks.
That is where I'm staying. That is the only lane I will be down. Okay. So that we just answered another question that someone had is, my penis is 5 inches. Am I small? And no, average is 5.5.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think a lot of women, I think most women agree that size is not that important. Now, to a point, of course, it matters. I think overly large is going to be uncomfortable and you can't really utilize the whole thing. And I think to a certain extent of smaller, it's going to be more difficult to enjoy. But for the most part, I think most women are very happy in the interim of a 5.5 inch penis. I mean, what is 5 inches? What is...
It's not that.
Is this 5 inches?
No.
How much is 5 inches? This?
I think this is 7 inches.
So 7? Let's put it in my hand. That's 7. So let's take...
Right? I think the iPhones are 7,
Okay.
7.5.
Okay.
I think that there's a couple of things when it comes to penis size, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of guys don't see other guys in most cases. So what they do see is porn.
Yeah.
So it gives like a false idea of
course.
what reality is.
Yeah.
Let's say for some reason, if you're going to the gym and stuff and you're showering and you see other guys, most of these in these instances, you're flaccid, so you can't really tell because most penises look generally pretty close to the same.
Okay.
Some guys are showers where they're naturally bigger, but they don't get that much bigger when they get erect.
That's a good point, because I guess I always thought like boys have to see other boys' penises, but you're not always seeing them hard. That makes
You're almost
sense.
never seeing them hard.
Yeah.
First off,
Okay,
or you shouldn't be, or
Guess.
maybe you should be, but aren't. I'm not
I
sure.
don't know.
Wherever you fall into in
Yeah.
those categories,
Interesting.
you often don't. And now most boys showers are different in schools and stuff like that, so there's a lot more privacy.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, the shower was like one big room with showers everywhere, and there was naked guys everywhere.
But they have flaccid penises.
And everybody for them pretty much looks the same. In those instances, the only thing that you could tell was circumcised or not circumcised. Right?
Interesting.
So you don't know any of those things, and then you watch pornography, and then everything is a lot bigger. And as a society, everybody's obsessed
With penis size.
with penis size.
Men more so than women.
Men mostly.
That's so interesting.
But it's also
'cause
the first thing that women attack.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I guess I've just never thought of it that way, of why men are so... And that's why I guess men are always asking women, like, how is my dick? They always want to know, like, how do they compare in the world of dicks? And I've never thought about it that way. And I honestly don't know if many women have, because I think when we were in locker rooms, like, if everybody had tits. It was like, what color are your nipples? You know, like, basically that was the only like difference, but we all had tits. It was just different nipples, and we all had vaginas, and we all had buttholes. So I don't think it was anything different. Vaginas are different once you get in them and once you see them up close, but from afar, it's the same thing, you know? So it's so... I just had
kind
a
of are
mind
too, though.
blown. But they aren't, though, because the difference between a flaccid and a hard penis is wildly different, at least in most cases.
In most cases, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
interesting.
a flaccid penis isn't going to look gigantic in most
Yeah.
cases. Some guys do look larger because
Yeah.
they don't get that much bigger when they're erect.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
those differences make some men feel insecure.
I was going to say that would make you feel even more insecure.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, but we don't have those conversations with boys and with
Yes.
guys, and guys are really secretive as a, like
Yeah.
as a society. We're really secretive about that kind of stuff.
Don't guys all at some point measure their penises, though?
I can't speak for all guys at all. But I would say that lots of guys do.
Yeah.
And in some cases, lots of friends will compare. Depends on, there could be where people will masturbate near each other, but not with each other. Right?
I've
like
heard that
watching
from
porn in the
men.
living room. Like all of those things. Some people might think that that's unusual, but it's not unusual. That's just the way it's kind of
Yeah.
been.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. That kind of exploration is pretty normal. Doesn't mean you're exploring each other.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the question that I have is, when I heard circle jerk in my head as a little kid, I thought boys were standing around jerking each other off, but that's not what it was. It was you guys were standing around jerking yourselves off
Correct.
together.
Usually watching looking at a Playboy
Yeah.
or whatever, where everybody's orgasming onto it. It had nothing really to do with the other guys.
So mind blowing.
In a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Now, nowadays, you can have a circle jerk where everyone's jerking each other off.
Well, right. That's porn, though. I feel like that's real life too.
No, I'd say that
That's
I
real
mean, there's
life?
certainly that's certainly on the gayer side
Okay.
of the spectrum.
Okay.
Right. And so the gay and bi guys are probably doing
Yeah.
that quite often at parties and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
I thought people didn't like hand jobs.
Well, so it depends because most people, every penis is going to be different. It depends how you masturbate that you get off.
Okay.
And so we develop those skills pretty early in life. How I masturbate is going to be very different from how another guy masturbates.
Yeah.
But that being said, we also have men that are circumcised and that aren't circumcised. And so if a man is circumcised, he's not going to know how to necessarily, if he's never had any exposure, how to do it that way, vice versa. And so all of those things can create some conflict to masturbation.
Interesting.
Because it's not just pumping it and how much head action versus ball action is necessary. All of those things are going to be distinct and specific to each man.
Interesting.
So hand jobs, they're better than nothing.
That's true.
But they can be pretty dull and they can be very painful unless we're using lotions and lubes and all that stuff. A little bit of saliva is not the same thing.
I don't even want to stop because there's so many more questions we didn't get through. But that's good because that gives us more episodes. So we're going to keep getting the questions. I want you to please keep giving them to us. We're going to keep answering them for you. I had so much fun with you today, Dr. Eddie. Thank you so much for all of your vast knowledge on all of these subjects. We appreciate you more than you know. All right, guys. And until next time, adios.